Sabrina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, okay. So for people, some people really know you. There's going to be listeners who really know you, but there's going to be people probably over 40 who have never heard of you. Perhaps. I don't know if the breakdown is like that, but I get the sense it kind of cuts that way a little bit in terms of slam poetry. So you explain, so you're a poet and author, obviously, a spoken word performer. Would you describe yourself that way? Slam poetry is interesting, isn't it? Because it's such a hybrid experience. How would you describe it? I've got my theories. I want to hear your description of what it is, because it's sort of a mixture of things, I'd say.
Yeah, it's definitely electric, I would say. That's one word I would use to describe it. But it's a good hybrid of like storytelling and poetry and just like oral tradition, I think, which is really beautiful.
So I became aware of slam poetry. Poetry was sort of my entree into really understanding writing. But this was back in the 80s when I don't think slam poetry, if it was happening, it was really in its nascent form. And I first became aware of it and knew it wasn't really a fit for what I was doing. And so talk to me about, how did you become aware of it? How did you get interested in it? How did that come across your prow?
I always watched videos on YouTube. I guess I when I was interested in it.
How young were you watching this?
I was reading poetry before I was watching spoken word on YouTube, right? I was reading far before. And then it wasn't until someone like Sarah Kay put out a TED Talk, or Rudy Francisco kind of started being all over YouTube, where I started paying more attention to spoken word poetry specifically.
And when did the thought pop into your young mind, like, I want to do that? I want to get up behind that microphone.
It never really did. But what happened was in 2013, I had a tumor in my throat the size of a squash ball. And my best friend said to me, I think it's because you swallow everything you want to say and write it down instead of saying it out loud. And he was like, you should just do like spoken word poetry. It's like a thing now. And so I signed up for a spoken word workshop in Toronto. And
How old were you?
I was 23.
Wow. And you had this tumor and it was making it hard to breathe, I assume?
No, hard to swallow. I could feel it when I swallowed.
Okay, I see. It was in that pipe. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And I assume it went away by some means?
Yeah, I had surgery. It's gone now. Well, but it was really that experience that brought me to like, maybe I should try talking out loud my feelings.
So that is interesting. What a wise friend you had.
Yes.
Okay, so you got up there and got scary stuff. If you're used to having it like all in there, did you have any? I'm working with a guy who teaches people. He had been a stand-up comedian. Now he teaches people how to communicate, like corporate people and stuff. And he says people will show up to his workshops drunk. They are so scared of getting up and telling a story. So did you have any of that, or was you kind of natural to it?
I think it was more of like going on a roller coaster where I was really afraid leading up to it. But then once I did it, it was so much fun and so relieving to speak, and just like a full body experience performing a poem. And it was really nice. And so I think after that, I just wanted to do it again.
Oh, see, you got bit by the bug. So you're scared, of course, because you don't know what's going to happen. But then you get up there and you kind of lose yourself, don't you?
Yeah, you just kind of surrender for that.
You do. You had an experience. So as I understand it, so 2014, you enter the Toronto Poetry Slam and you read a poem, telling my mother about my depression. Is that
explaining my depression to my mother.
Explaining my depression to my mother is the poem. And this goes kind of global, doesn't it? Kind of blow up on it because it goes on YouTube, I assume, is what happens, right?
Yeah, so I performed this poem on the Toronto Poetry Slam team in Oakland at the National Poetry Slam.
Oh, you came from, is that how it works? There's a team? Oh my God. Okay. So all right. I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's you compete. It's like a season that you compete on. So you just perform every week. You get points if you win. And then the top people make the team. And
okay. I didn't realize. Thing. Oh yeah, God. Okay.
Which I will say, it's very fun, but like I'm not an especially competitive person. So it was difficult for me to compete sometimes with like such personal work.
Right.
Like it's a weird choice
Yeah.
to make, but it's a lot of fun. And we ended up performing it in the semifinals of the National Poetry Slam in Oakland. And then that video went up months later onto YouTube. And when it did go up, it went quite viral.
Yeah. And so I assume your life changed at that point a little in terms certain aspects of your life changed at that point. You're
Honestly,
still
my
you.
whole life changed. It was wild because the thing was, in a way, it changed things for me personally so much more than it did just to have my career kind of take a different course, because nobody really knew that I had depression or anxiety or was dealing with it in my life until that poem went viral. And it was quite overwhelming, to be honest, for everyone to learn at once.
When you say everyone, do you mean your friends and your more extended
family? My extended family, my friends, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so, I mean, the term mental health has been much in the news for the last, 5 or 6 years, more of a thing now. Did you I assume you kind of got brought into that conversation to some degree beyond poetry.
Right, exactly. In a way, I became this like poster for depression.
I don't know.
That was overwhelming when I had been like trying not to be.
Right. Well, what do you think about that? Because you obviously want to help people with that, but there's more you don't want it seems to me, I wouldn't want my whole life to be about depression. It's something you hope to not actually have or not to have to live with. So what was?
Yeah, exactly. With ease. So it was overwhelming, but it also was really illuminating on how much it helped to talk about it, how much other people found solace in talking about it, found comfort, saw themselves in the conversation, and were then able to have those conversations with the people they needed to have it with.
Sure.
Like it really felt like it brought more good than harm to the world. And so it felt like a good conversation and a good thing to represent. And I kind of just embraced it. And now I've only kind of grown in my relationship with my mental health because of being so open about it.
Your relationship had been live and now you're publishing it. And do you like the experience of sharing the printed?
I do. I really like it. I think in a lot of ways, holding on to the poems keeps them in you longer. Like once you let go of them, they become other people's thing.
They do. Yeah.
However they want, and they're not really yours anymore. And there's a freedom there, which is really nice.
So you list yourself as a workshop facilitator also. What workshops are you facilitating? What is being facilitated in those workshops?
So a lot of poetry is being facilitated. We're usually looking at poems, reading them, talking about the tools that they could give us in our work to then use in our own writing, and then we write together.
Yeah.
And so I've done them. I've been doing them all over the place throughout the last couple of years, more so, just they've all been virtual. But right now, nothing. There will probably be one this winter.
You like it?
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think writing in community is brilliant.
Yeah, I know. It's where the waters I've been swimming in for the last 10 years. And it's, I don't you think there's something about people that the vulnerability they have to bring when they're trying to face a blank page and say, what do I think deserves to be? What do I want to put there? They so put themselves out there. I love the sort of tenderheartedness of that workshop experience when I've led them and taught them.
Yeah, it definitely brings out a trust in people where they have to trust themselves first, and then they have to trust everybody else second. And I think you get to work on that trust throughout the workshop with the work you're bringing into it. If you're going to read something really vulnerable, you have to have trust in everybody that they're going to hold that for you. And it's a really good exercise in putting yourself out there. And I really admire people that take that chance.
All right. I got one more question for you, Sabrina. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to finish this sentence. If all the writing you've done since you're just a wee lass, all the writing has taught you anything, it's taught you what?
Oh, you got to get weird.
You got to get weird.
Yeah.
All right, I've asked that question 1,000 times. That's the first time someone told me they got to get weird. What do you mean? Yeah. Explain yourself.
Like, you got to get weird in your work. You got to let the writing take you somewhere you didn't think you were going to go. And when you get there, you kind of got to let yourself loose, you know?